An iconic fighting game franchise that has never been on a Nintendo platform is making its way to Switch 2. Fantasy Life is getting a Switch 2 edition. The developers of Fast Fusion are looking into a 120 FPS patch. That would be awesome. We have more information on Bravely Default HD Remaster. We have tons of UI footage for the Nintendo Switch 2, including cursor controls on the home screen, which is really neat. Cyberpunk 2077 has gone gold, and of course, there is a rumor going around right now that Persona 4 Remake will be announced in June. That is what we are getting into today. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 news and coverage leading up to the launch of the console, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. I hope your morning is going well. So, a lot to get into today regarding third-party games on Nintendo Switch 2, including the announcement of Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O, which I am personally very excited about. However, I wanted to do a follow-up on yesterday's video, which you all absolutely killed it on. The support was great there. I covered this leak going around from Arc System Works. They had some sort of data breach, and as part of that, there was this Project Life game, which seems to be some sort of new Another Code Hotel Dusk style game following the remake of Another Code Recollection last year. But there's also this Project Watari game that a lot of people are speculating is some sort of Nintendo cross Arc System Works fighting game. Arc System Works is known for their great fighting games, of course, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive. Someone corrected me. They've also released DNF Duel and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus since then, so apologies for that. However, in yesterday's video, when talking about this fighting game, I was really focusing on really three franchises: a Pokemon fighting game, a Fire Emblem fighting game, or a Xenoblade fighting game. Those were the three from Nintendo that I feel like would really gel well with Arc System Works, and it'd be really cool to see them get a fighting game spinoff. However, there was one comment. I apologize, I cannot find the comment now in the thread, but shout out to you. You had an amazing idea, and I just wanted to highlight it here because this, as much as I love Xenoblade and Fire Emblem, like, this would be incredible. What if that Arc System Works fighting game, if it is a fighting game, obviously we don't know that for sure, but what if we got an Arc System Works cross Nintendo fighter for Splatoon? A Splatoon fighting game would go so unbelievably hard. It's not the franchise that I was thinking of. It wasn't really even on my radar. However, it kind of ticks a lot of the right boxes. The character roster could be huge because you have all of the different idols. You have Captain Cuttlefish. You could even just do Boy Inkling, Girl Inkling, Splat Roller Inkling, Bucket Inkling, however you want to do it. You have the huge baked-in audience in Japan, of course. Splatoon is huge in Japan. R.E.V.O Japan is actually happening there right now, which is why we know about Virtua Fighter 5 coming to Switch 2. It would look really good. This would be such a flashy fighting game with all of the ink splatters on the screen, and you're sloshing your ink bucket onto the enemy to do damage. A Splatoon Arc System Works like competitive fighter would be so awesome. So shout out to the comment that mentioned that. That is in the rotation of my dream games now. Of I want Fire Emblem fighting game, I want a Xenoblade fighting game, but also a Splatoon fighting game. That would go unbelievably hard. With that addition to yesterday's video behind us, let's go ahead and get into the news. So this dropped yesterday during R.E.V.O Japan. I want to say the finals or something. I don't keep up with R.E.V.O too much, but Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O has been announced for PS5, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch 2. And this might not seem like a big deal on paper. This is essentially a PS3 game. Virtua Fighter 5 launched on PS3, 360, and in arcades, maybe actually 2 decades ago now. However, it is still the most recent Virtua Fighter game. We do have a new one coming from the Yakuza studio, but this is the first time a mainline Virtua Fighter game has ever come to a Nintendo platform. I almost couldn't believe it when I saw the announcement, and I went to the Wikipedia to see, like, okay, well, this surely there had to have been one GameCube or one random like spinoff on Wii. There's essentially nothing. There's a game I think called Virtua Quest on GameCube, but that is clearly not the same thing. So we didn't get too much information on this release. It came out on PC, I want to say back in February, but this is going to include rollback netcode as well as crossplay, presumably between all platforms, which is great. And this is a great sign in general for the future of fighting games on Switch 2. I think that's definitely worth noting. We're getting Street Fighter 6, we're getting Virtua Fighter now. If they're putting Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O on Switch 2, that to me would be a heavy indicator that RGG is going to try their best to get the new Virtua Fighter game, Virtua Fighter 6 or whatever they end up calling it, on the Switch 2 as well. And then from there, well, what does that mean for the likes of Tekken or maybe a new Dead or Alive eventually? Like, we're going to start seeing more of these proper current fighting games come to a Nintendo platform, I think, which is just so exciting. We do not have a release date for this yet. I bet we get to that June Direct or maybe a little bit later in the year and we find out more about this release. Maybe it's a shadow drop at that point. I think it'll be this year. They didn't say that, but considering it is such an old game, they will probably end up putting it out later this year, I imagine, because next year should be the new one. This is my own speculation. I actually played a good bit of Virtua Fighter 5 late last year on PS4, the Ultimate Showdown version. I'm not sure what all the differences is. I think the big thing with R.E.V.O is rollback netcode, which means better online matches, of course. So great stuff. Sega bringing a lot of stuff to Switch 2, and I hope we see that continue throughout the year with more third-party announcements at the same time as the other platforms. This was a ports announcement, a remaster announcement for Virtua Fighter 5, but the Switch 2 version was announced at the same time as all of the other versions, which is what I hope we see more of moving forward. Moving over to Gematsu for our next story, we don't have too much information on this. Level 5 might be the most mismanaged company of all time. I do not understand what they're doing. There was a story a couple of days ago from the CEO of Level 5 talking about how like 80 to 90% of games are AI now or something. I don't know, man. I feel like every story that comes out about Level 5, there's always like some huge asterisk on it. However, Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, is a highly anticipated game for a lot of people. It's actually releasing, I want to say, in about a week on all of the other platforms, Switch, PS5, I think on PC as well. And I think for a lot of us, we were wondering, well, they announced a Switch 2 edition of Inazuma 11. We know we're getting a Switch 2 edition of Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. What about Fantasy Life? Are they just going to leave Fantasy Life high and dry? Well, thankfully, they announced a Switch 2 edition of Fantasy Life I, which is great. I'm really happy to hear this. And at the last Nintendo Direct, they showed a little bit of this game, and I could see that frame rate, man. Like, this game was clearly not running at its full potential on Switch 1. So to know that we're getting a Switch 2 edition is a great thing. They say that the Switch 2 version will run at a higher resolution and frame rate compared to the Switch version. They say that on the official website, and there will be an upgrade pack available for 300 yen in Japan, but pricing in the West was not announced. 300 yen is very cheap, though, to the point that it's like, I mean, that's like, what, $2 here? You know, like that's no money here. So I wonder how much that upgrade would cost on the Switch 2 in America and in Europe and stuff. But the weird thing is, they didn't put a release date on it. So the game is releasing on all the other platforms on May 21st, as the Gematsu article states right down here. But yeah, there's no release date for the Switch 2 version. That's just weird to me. Like, clearly they're scrambling to get it ready, and I guess maybe they're hoping they can get it ready for launch day, but I bet this is something we see a little bit later in the summer, maybe in like July or August, or maybe even later than that. It just feels weird to announce it without a release date, but regardless, I'm very happy it is getting one, and hopefully it will get some sort of, even if it is a game keycard release, hopefully the Switch 2 version has some sort of physical presence as well. That would be very cool. Level 5, though, they just can't catch a break. I feel almost bad for them. They're so poorly managed in how they're doing everything. But Inazuma 11 coming out in August, we finally have a release date for that after it's been delayed for, I think, over a decade now. Professor Layton is still slated for this year. I don't fully believe that it's coming out this year based on how many times all these other games have been delayed, but we will see. One of the Switch 2 launch titles that I'm most excited to check out is Fast Fusion, the latest racing game from Shin'en Multimedia, and it looks like the developer plans on potentially patching it with a 120 FPS mode, reading from Nintendo Everything here. They say here that Fast Fusion may receive a 120 FPS performance mode after launch. That's according to Manfred Lisner, who shared the news in an interview with Nintendo Everything, so shout out to them for getting that scoop. It's going to run at 64K on launch day, just as is, but it looks like they're going to try to go back and make it 4K. Lisner told us that Shin'en decided to focus on making a great game at 60 FPS when playing 4-player split screen, but since 120 FPS would be nice to have, the company will look if this will be possible for a later patch. I mean, so even if they'd make it so it's 120 at 1080 or 120 only in single player, like, that'd be fine, in my opinion. Just have that as an option. I mean, even 4K 60 4-player split screen is nuts. Like, that's really impressive. This is definitely one of the most visually impressive Switch 2 launch titles, and the great thing is it's only going to be $15. Shin'en is going all in on the consumer-friendly route with this title. Fast RMX, you will remember, as a Switch 1 launch title, was $20. So this new entry is cheaper and looks better, you know, which is absolutely nuts. I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. I will definitely be streaming it on launch day. Might have to put Mario Kart World aside for a little bit. I gotta check out Fast Fusion from Shin, and I love Shin, and I love how this has become a thing, like a tradition of like, okay, new Nintendo console launch, here's your fast racing game. That's pretty nice, and I hope they're able to get that 120 FPS mode working, because that would be, ooh, so buttery smooth. I need it. Okay, next up, I wanted to highlight this preview that RPG Fan did with Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster this past weekend at PAX East 2025. Now, I don't know if any of the actual information in here is new. Frankly, it's a good preview. I wanted to shout it out, but also just give me an excuse to talk about Bravely Default, which I haven't really done on this channel yet. So, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, they talk a lot about how despite being a remaster, it feels very true to the original. You can very much tell that it is a 3DS remaster, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It has its style that it's going for. They talk about the new mini games that you can play using the mouse controls on Switch 2. I'm not sure about these, man. Like, it's a fun distraction. It's cool that they have mouse functionality in them, but I don't know. They go over the Luxencheer Rhythm Catch rhythm-based game, which they say requires different mouse interactions to hit flying markers. Some markers require clicking the left or right button over floral icons. Another draws a tether between your mouse cursors that must intersect a circle, and so on. While the intent is to play with the Joy-Con in each hand, we heard another pair try playing with two people, each controlling one cursor. The co-op idea sounded too good to pass up, so we tried it too, and I dare say we did well. In the full game, these new mini-games will be awarded various bonuses, including new story details via notes in Dee's journal. So there's some new mini games that use the mouse controls. Pretty cool. Kind of just feels like a random thing to include, but hey, it's a launch title. You got to have your tech showcase in there. But what has me really excited, and I think this was already in the original, however, I didn't know it was, and hearing about it has me much more eager to jump into this game as someone who likes to play a lot of games and doesn't really have a lot of time to play as many games as I would like. They go over the quality of life features in this game, so you can speed up the battles and event scenes by up to 4 times. I'm pretty sure that was in the 3DS version. You can also play alongside allies from your Nintendo friends list, and there is an adjustable encounter rate from 0 to 200%. It sounds like there was some confusion or maybe controversy of whether or not this version would let you toggle the encounters on or off like the original Western release of this game, because I guess the first screenshots of it said that 50% was the minimum. However, they asked their Square Enix representative, and they said that you will be able to set the encounter rate to 0. It's just not an option from the very starts of the game. So pretty excited for this game. I gotta be honest, I mean, it does feel pretty slept on as a Switch 2 launch title, because it feels weird, right? Like, this feels like it should have been a Switch 1 game, and I really question the decision to make it an exclusive. I wonder if that was a Square Enix decision or a Nintendo decision, maybe a little bit of both. But this is one I do want to play down the line. I probably won't be firing it up on day one. There's so many other games that I want to get to, but Bravely Default is a franchise I've been meaning to play for a very long time, and hearing about the new mouse con modes, the mini games, and hearing that there is speed up, even though it looks like that was in the original, has me more interested in it than I was initially, in terms of like, I want to play these games. I need to knock them off the backlog. I think before the end of 2025, I want to get through this game, and that speed up option will certainly help. Okay, next up, I wanted to show off this clip from the Nintendo Today app. If you're not on the Nintendo Today app, you're missing out on all of the hot scoops and all of the hot breaking Nintendo news. But seriously, over the past week, they've been getting a little bit better in terms of like showing me things I'm actually interested in seeing. A lot of that is UI stuff. So I'm not going to play with audio here, but there is like, you can hear the UI sounds, and they are actually different, even though the UI is basically identical. The, icons here are rounded now. But they released a video yesterday morning going over the mouse controls, and we now know with certainty that you can use them on the home screen, which was rumored, if you remember, by Next Handheld back in December of last year. If you remember that whole leak around Christmas, he was like, yeah, I'm going to show the Switch 2 on Christmas Day. He was saying that you could use the cursor on the home screen, and now we know that is 100% true. I think we might have seen hints of this up until now, but we have an entire video from Nintendo showing it off. And I gotta be honest, man, like, I know this is such a simple thing. It's like, oh yeah, you can use mouse controls on the Nintendo Switch 2. However, seeing it on such a system level has me really excited, man. Like, my time playing the Switch 2 back in April, by far the thing I was most impressed by was the mouse controls in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I was blown away playing a 120 FPS, 1080p mouse-controlled FPS from Nintendo. It felt very weird, but also it felt so right. It felt so good playing that game with the mouse controls. I think people are going to be really surprised when they get their hands on the mouse con and they play them. Of course, that will depend on your environment and the table setup that you have. If you're trying to do it on your leg, it might not work quite as well as I was, you know, playing on like a desk at the Nintendo events. But mouse controls, man, very happy about it, and it's cool that you can use them on the home screen. So I mean, in theory, if you want to play a lot of games and if you want to treat the Switch 2 as like a PC and use it as like a fully, like you're using mouse controls console, depending on the games you play, you could do that, because even on a UI level, they do work, which is just really cool. Just wanted to share this as it is kind of a feel-good moment and a great sign for things to come from CD Projekt Red on Nintendo Switch. They have confirmed that the Switch 2 Ultimate Edition of Cyberpunk 2077 has gone gold, meaning they are finished the development and they can start printing those cartridges with all of the data on it. They are doing the true physical release. Just wanted to highlight it. CD Projekt Red, you know, they deserve all of the praise right now when it comes to how they're handling their Switch 2 releases. And of course, Marvelous also does with Rune Factory and Daemon X Machina and Story of Seasons as well. But yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 has gone gold on the Nintendo Switch. I'm pretty excited to check out this version of the game. Let me know in the comments down below if you're planning on checking this one out on launch day. And then finally, for today's video, I wanted to go over this rumor regarding a Persona 4 remake being announced next month at the June Xbox Showcase. Now, Persona 4 Remake is not something new to the channel. We have talked about this in the past, specifically regarding the domain. The domain for p4re.jp was registered a few hours ago. This is a post from March, but it was registered back in March, and basically the thinking is 2 months before Persona 3 Reload, the remake of Persona 3 was announced, they registered a very similar domain name, P3RE. So a Persona 4 remake, I don't know if it was fast-tracked, I don't know if this was always the plan, but it looks like we might actually be seeing it announced within a month or so. We had Xasis last month saying that Persona 4 Remake will launch on Xbox Game Pass day one. Not really surprising. That's been true for a lot of recent Atlas releases, Persona 5 Tactica, as well as 3, 4, and 5, and Persona 3 Reload. I think Metaphor was really the only recent Atlas game to not launch on Game Pass day one. So Atlas and Xbox, they have a pretty good relationship. It stands to reason that a Persona 4 remake, if it is coming soon, would be announced there. And then just last week, we had this person, Ramona, aka @Powiful on X, saying that Persona 4 Remake will release in the first half of 2026 and will be announced at the Xbox Showcase on June 8th. Of course, take this with a grain of salt. It is possible this does not happen. However, it feels like with Atlas leaks, like usually we start hearing a lot of people saying one thing and then that thing ends up happening. The only one that is still eluding me is, I think there was like a Persona 5 party game rumored at one point. I think maybe, I don't want to say names, but I'm pretty sure there were some pretty reputable people saying a Persona 5 party game was going to happen, and that never happened. So we'll see, but Persona 4 Remake, it feels so soon. Even if it releases in, let's say, Q1, Q2, 2026, that's still only 2 years after Persona 3 Reload. And also, where's Persona 6? Quantum Protector says down here, at this point, we are going to get a Persona 5 remake before Persona 6, and it really feels like it, man. Like, I'm down for a Persona 4 remake. That would be awesome. As someone who has not played Persona 4, I would still want to play the original, or at the very least, you know, play Persona 4 Golden, but like, make more modern versions of these games. I know people, there were some issues with Persona 3 and how they did not combine all the different versions or something with the female main character from Persona 3 Portable, I think. I'm not sure if there's anything like that would happen with Persona 4 Golden, because all we had was Persona 4, then Golden, and now it would be a remake. Persona 3 had a little bit more going on with FES and Portable, but it sounds like a Persona 4 remake might be announced next month at the Xbox Showcase, and hopefully, the reason I'm even talking about it in this video is the hope would be that this would be announced for Switch 2 at the same time as the other platforms. We still need to see Metaphor and Persona 3 Reload come over to Switch 2. I think it's just a matter of time, and a Persona 4 remake. Come on, Atlas. Come on, Sega. You're bringing, hey, Sega bringing Virtua Fighter, Yakuza 0, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Sonic Shadow. Like, they're doing a lot of stuff on Switch 2. Even the R.E.V.O remaster is day one on Switch 2. Get on top of things with Persona on Nintendo, please. I do not want to have to wait months, even years, for a Switch 2 version of Persona 4 Remake and Persona 6 when we do get there in a year or two. So that is going to do it for today's video. Wanted to highlight yesterday's video as well, going over the potential of a Splatoon fighting game, because that would be incredible from Arc System Works. Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O is coming to Nintendo Switch 2. Very exciting. Fantasy Life I is getting a Switch 2 edition. It looks like Fast Fusion might be getting a 120 FPS patch, as well as all the other stuff we discussed. I feel like there's just every day, every single day, there's so much information about every game coming in, and you all seem to like these more compilation style news videos. I like most games. You know, I like a Bravely Default, a Fast Fusion, a Persona, and a Virtua Fighter. I want to talk about all of these things, and doing these bigger news videos where I cover all of it is allowing me to talk about all of these smaller news stories and previews and rumors and stuff. So I really appreciate the support on the channel recently. You guys have been absolutely killing it, so thank you for that. Of course, subscribe here for more videos like this. I would very much appreciate it. Like the video. You can follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at It's Amiibo. I posted a video about game keycards over there this morning. Excited to see the response to that video, because I definitely have the unpopular opinion when it comes to those things. And as always, you can click on one of these two videos to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo stuff. Until next time, folks, peace.